The CEO's chair is occupied. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. You won't believe what this billionaire found in his corner office. Jason Miller's mornings always began the same way. Early, quiet, and ruthlessly efficient. He liked arriving at the Emerald Tower office before the city stirred, when his private floor was empty enough to echo. His custom-tailored coat and dark, polished shoes were part of the armor he wore. Jason wasn't just a CEO. He was the bedrock of a financial empire built on precision and discipline. Emotion and unpredictability were things he'd trained himself to avoid, which is why, on this particular morning, he was utterly unprepared for what he found. He walked past the heavy glass doors of his corner office and froze mid-step. His space was not empty. Huddled in his leather executive chair, sound asleep, were two small children. They couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Their heads rested against each other, their tousled blonde hair a sharp contrast to the dark leather. As he slowly stepped closer, something stopped him dead. The shape of their features, the curve of their ears, and most startlingly, the unmistakable piercing blue of their eyes. They weren't similar to his. They were identical. A small, folded note lay on his desk. He picked it up, his hands shaking slightly. The handwriting was uneven, but legible. Take care of them. They have no one left but you. No name. No explanation. Just the sudden, crushing weight of a life of silence, now breathing quietly in two small bodies in his chair. Like this video right now, if you think Jason should put his board meeting on hold. Chapter 1. Identity and Interruption. Jason's assistant, clearly breathless, rushed in and froze at the sight. "Mr. Miller, I'm so sorry. Security found them downstairs. They were on the lobby sofa, no adult, just this." Jason waved her away, still staring at the children. "Don't touch them. Don't call anyone." Not yet. He was sitting opposite them when the taller child, Liam, blinked awake. He gently woke his twin, Lucas. Neither looked frightened, just uncertain. Jason forced a smile. "Hello?" "I'm Jason." The boys were silent, their blue eyes searching his face. Jason slowly knelt. "Are you okay? Are you hungry?" Lucas, the one with a small scar above his brow. Jason called for food. As the boys quietly ate at his conference table, he finally asked the question that burned inside him. "Do you know who I am?" Lucas nodded. "You're Jason Miller. Our mom said that's your name." "What is your mom's name?" he asked, already knowing. The older boy, Lem, finally spoke. Emily Carter." Emily. A name he hadn't spoken in years. A brief, unplanned fling he'd dismissed as inconsequential. He hadn't even known she was pregnant. And now, they were here. "Will we go back now?" Liam asked softly. Jason swallowed hard. "Go back where?" The boys shrugged. "Home?" "With Mom. She said if anything happened, we should come here. That you would find us." Jason walked to the window, staring out at the city he thought he knew so well. For the first time in years, the disciplined CEO was utterly, completely lost. Viewer question. Jason is clearly overwhelmed. What should be his absolute first step right now? Call the police/social services, call his lawyer, or just take the kids home? Comment below. Chapter 2. The Unseen Past. Jason canceled his meetings and immediately made 2 calls, one to a trusted private investigator and one to his attorney. He needed answers about Emily. The investigator called back late that evening. The news was a cold, hard blow. Emily Carter had been in a severe car accident almost 3 months ago. She was alive, but in a long-term care facility. In a coma with no known family. The final detail struck Jason the hardest. Under emergency contact, she had listed Jason Miller, his own name. After all the silence, she had still trusted him to come for them. Jason left the office instantly. He found the twins waiting by the reception desk, huddled together, small and resolute. "We're going," he said gently, crouching down. "To see your mom." The twins didn't question it. They simply rose and followed, their small feet echoing on the marble floor. The hospital was quiet and sterile. They found Emily in a narrow bed, surrounded by monitors. The boys moved to her side naturally. One immediately climbed onto the chair beside her, gently seeking her hand. Jason froze at the foot of the bed. He looked at Emily, then at his sons. Liam looked up at him, tears welling in his blue eyes. "Is Mom going to wake up?" Jason knelt beside them, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "We don't know yet, but we are here now. She's not alone anymore." That night, Jason sat in the corner, watching them all. He realized he was seeing a past he had chosen to ignore and a future he hadn't earned. The guilt was heavy, but so was a strange, fragile sense of permission. He didn't deserve this chance, but he would not waste it. Subscribe now to follow the recovery of Emily and the transformation of Jason Miller. Chapter 3. The cereal aisle. The following days were a blur of new, awkward routines. Jason took an unheard-of leave of absence. His glass and steel penthouse, once a minimalist showroom, became a makeshift nursery. He tried to be the provider, but quickly failed. He burned toast, spilled juice on the marble counters, and stood helpless in the grocery store, wondering which cereal to choose. The boys were patient with him, observing, quietly hopeful. Jason learned Liam disliked bananas and had a quiet stubbornness. Lucas loved aligning his toy cars in perfect rows before bed. Both loved reading dinosaur books. Most importantly, he learned that when they called him Daddy, something inside him softened. Every night, they visited the hospital. The twins brought Emily new crayon drawings and told her about their day, their small voices full of unwavering belief that she would wake up. One evening, alone with Emily, Jason spoke, pouring out years of buried emotion. He confessed his fear of becoming like his own absent, work-obsessed father. "I thought staying away would save me from that," he whispered. "But I was wrong. All they ever needed was someone to stay. And I'm staying, Em. I'm not going anywhere now." He didn't need a response. He felt a deep, unfamiliar stillness settle within him. For the man who had lived his life running from anything that demanded too much heart, this quiet presence was everything. Chapter 4. The unforeseen thaw. Winter arrived, and the twins adapted. Jason, to his own astonishment, adapted to being a father. He found himself ignoring emails to help Liam find a lost sock or untangle Lucas from a jar of spilled paint. His apartment, once cold, now echoed with life. One snowy afternoon, while the boys napped after a fierce pillow fort battle, Jason received a final ultimatum from his board. Return to the office or resign. For hours, he looked at the email. His company, his identity, was waiting. But sitting in that kitchen, surrounded by evidence of a much messier, more meaningful life, he realized he no longer wanted to lead the world from a corner office. That night, he drafted his resignation. It was simple, honest. His legacy wasn't in numbers. It was in the small voices that now called him Daddy. The next morning, he made pancakes. He burned the first batch, but laughed when the boys insisted on helping to fix it. They stirred the batter, flour dusting their hair. For the first time he could remember, he felt exactly where he was supposed to be. Later, walking through the snow to the hospital, Lucas slipped his hand into Jason's without looking up. Jason squeezed back. Entering the hospital room, something was different. The silence was broken. As Liam placed a drawing in Emily's hand, her fingers subtly twitched. Just once. Barely visible, but real. Jason leaned closer, calling her name softly. Her eyelids fluttered. Then, one deep breath later, Emily's eyes were open. She was looking at the children. Tired. Clear and alive. The twins gasped. Jason sank to her side, finding her hand. She smiled, a tiny, cracked motion of her lips. And when she spoke, her voice was barely a breath. You kept them safe. He nodded. Unable to speak, her gaze swept over the three of them, and then returned to Jason. You came back. In that moment, the future opened like sunlight through snow-covered branches. Fragile, bright, and full of life. Viewer question. What do you think Emily's first conversation with Jason should focus on? Her recovery, his job, or the children? Final chapter. The new measure of success. Recovery was slow, but constant. Jason handled every detail of Emily's care, moving from a detached observer to her dedicated partner. They visited daily, the twins becoming fixtures in the rehab center. Jason finally told Emily the truth about his past, his fears, his selfishness, his regret. She listened, sometimes crying, sometimes just holding his hand. He learned that forgiveness wasn't a single moment. It was built over time, in quiet security, and the simple act of not leaving when things got difficult. By spring, Emily was strong enough to come home. Not to her old apartment, but to Jason's house, a home now filled with chipped mugs, messy toys, and the echo of growing children. One Sunday afternoon, they sat on a picnic blanket in the park. Emily rested against him, the twins chasing butterflies nearby. Jason looked at them and felt the peace he never knew he craved. He had traded his pursuit of global dominance for a life defined by daily love. As the sun set, Lucas and Liam ran back, grass-stained and wind-blown. Jason pulled them into his arms and kissed their foreheads. Emily leaned into his shoulder, her voice soft against his ear. You found your way. And Jason, looking at his family and the life he had almost missed, whispered back, Thanks to all of you. We built something better. He had stopped measuring his success in profits and started measuring it in presence. The billionaire's journey wasn't about the empire he controlled, but the family he finally chose to nurture. Thank you for following Jason's incredible transformation. Please share this video if you were moved by their journey. Chapter 5: The Price of a Promise. Like this video if you think true wealth is defined by family, not fortune. Emily's return home sparked a beautiful, complex chaos. She wasn't just a visitor. She was the missing anchor. She understood the twins' quirks, the way Lucas hummed when he was deep in concentration, the exact right way to comfort Liam after a bad dream. Jason, meanwhile, was learning to follow her lead, trading his need for control for a partnership built on trust. But the corporate world wasn't done with Jason Miller. One afternoon, Jason was meeting with his former COO, Marcus, at a quiet downtown cafe. Marcus was now the interim CEO, and he was clearly agitated. Jason, you need to come back. The market is nervous. We've had a major correction since you left, Marcus stated, leaning forward conspiratorially. I can make the board understand the family emergency. They'll give you a sabbatical. You won't lose your seat or your fortune. Jason took a slow sip of his coffee. I resigned, Marcus. I'm not coming back. Be reasonable. You're walking away from hundreds of millions, money you spent your life building. And for what? A domestic situation? Marcus scoffed, glancing at Jason's worn and stained sweater. Let Emily take the kids and hire the best nurses. You can still support them. You don't have to sacrifice everything. Jason felt the cold sting of judgment, the kind he used to dispense himself. He looked at Marcus, a mirror of the man he used to be, sharp and utterly lonely. Marcus, I didn't sacrifice anything, Jason said, his voice calm and firm. I gained everything. My old life was about acquiring. My new life is about nurturing, and I will not trade a single afternoon with my sons, or a single moment helping Emily heal, for any amount of money. Marcus didn't understand. Jason realized he didn't need him to. He had already chosen the price of his promise. Viewer question: if you were Marcus, what would be the most convincing argument you could use to try and lure Jason back to the corporate world? Share your thoughts below. Chapter 6: Rebuilding the Foundation. Jason's biggest challenge wasn't the board. It was the slow, difficult process of co-parenting with a partner in recovery. Emily was fiercely independent, but her injuries meant she still needed physical help and rest. One day, Emily was determined to bake a batch of cookies, a tradition she'd shared with the boys. But she grew dizzy after only a few minutes, leaning heavily against the counter. "I can't even do this," Emily whispered, her voice cracking with frustration and despair. "I can't be a good mom if I can't even bake cookies." Liam and Lucas, seeing their mother upset, immediately ran to her side. Jason gently took Emily's hand. "Hey, stop. You are a good mom. You're the best, and you're not doing this alone anymore." He sat her down and tied a spare apron around his waist. "Tell you what, you're the head of quality control. You manage the flavor profile. The boys and I are the baking specialists." Together, they turned the event into a noisy, flour-covered family project. Emily sat, directing the mixing, correcting their measurements, and laughing as Jason clumsily tried to crack eggs one-handed. Later, as they ate the slightly burnt yet perfect cookies, Emily looked at Jason. "Thank you," she said simply. "We're a team, Emily," Jason replied, the words feeling natural and earned. "You handled the hardest part of their lives alone. Now, we handle the easy parts together." Subscribe to the channel now. Hit the bell so you don't miss more moments of Jason embracing the chaos. Final chapter: the full circle. As the spring turned into summer, Emily's strength returned, and the family began to move forward, not just healing the past, but forging a brand new future. Jason didn't leave his entrepreneurial spirit behind. He just rechanneled it. He started a small, ethical venture fund focused on investing in companies that supported parents' and children's wellness. Companies that understood that humanity, not just profit, was the key metric. His new office was a spacious, sunny room in their home, deliberately chosen not to be on a corner, but right next to the playroom. One evening, Emily and Jason were sitting on the couch after putting the boys to bed. Emily pulled out the old, creased note that had brought the twins to his office. "Take care of them. They have no one left but you." "When I wrote that," Emily said, her voice soft, "I was so scared. I didn't know if the man I knew would show up. I just knew you were their only shot at a name, at stability." Jason took the note and gently placed it back on the coffee table. "You knew who I could be, Emily. You gave me the one thing money could never buy, a reason to change." He looked at her, then at the sound of the boys whispering and giggling from their room. "I spent 35 years trying to prove I was the best," Jason confessed. "Now I just want to prove I'm reliable. I want to prove that the most valuable thing I own is the trust of the 3 people in this room." He reached for her hand. The man who once craved absolute solitude now found his greatest peace in the presence of his family. He had traded the glittering samtazed empty heights of the Emerald Tower for the grounded, messy, and infinitely rewarding reality of a home. The CEO was gone. The father had finally arrived. His greatest acquisition wasn't a company, but the chance to build a life, day by day. Hand in hand. Thank you for following Jason, Emily, Liam, and Lucas on their incredible journey. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that the best stories are always the ones we choose to write ourselves. Chapter 7: The Unscheduled Wedding. Like this video if you think the best weddings are the ones that are totally unplanned. Life for the Miller family settled into a rhythm that was messy, loud, and blissfully real. Jason's calendar, once filled with global travel, was now dedicated to school pickups, rocket dog viewings, and physical therapy appointments with Emily. One sunny Saturday, Jason was in his home office when the door creaked open. Liam and Lucas stood there, wearing Jason's discarded ties as makeshift belts. "Daddy," Liam announced with the grave seriousness of a 4-year-old on a mission. "We need to do the thing." "The important thing," Lucas confirmed, holding up a bouquet of plastic flowers and a slightly wilted dandelion. "What thing, boys?" Jason asked. "The Mary thing," Chloe exclaimed, stomping her foot. Wait, where did Chloe come from? Oh, right. Wrong story. Lucas corrected his brother. "The Mary thing, Dad. Mom said people who love each other stay together. So we need to make it official." Emily, who had been listening from the hallway, leaned against the doorframe, trying to suppress a laugh. She was stronger now, steady on her feet, and radiantly healthy. Jason was stunned. He hadn't thought about marriage. His previous life had dismissed it as a useless legal contract. But now, looking at the earnest faces of his sons, he realized it wasn't a contract. It was a promise, a public affirmation of the commitment he already felt. "Are you game, Em?" Jason asked. Emily smiled, a brilliant, full-wattage smile that erased years of pain. "It's not perfect, but it's real, and it's exactly what I want." The impromptu wedding commenced. The ceremony took place in their sun-drenched living room. Liam was the ring bearer, solemnly presenting 2 candy rings on a ceramic plate. Lucas was the officiant, reading a speech he'd dictated to Emily the night before. "Mommy is the best at cookies. Daddy is the best at finding lost socks. They will be best together forever. You can kiss now." Tears streamed down Emily's face as Jason slipped the sugary ring onto her finger. When he kissed her, it was a moment of profound, simple truth, the end of his isolation and the beginning of their journey. Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment telling us the best thing about impromptu weddings. Chapter 8. An uninvited guest. The quiet family celebration was interrupted by the chime of the doorbell. Jason frowned. "I didn't invite anyone." He opened the door and froze. Standing there was an older gentleman in a pristine suit, looking slightly lost against the backdrop of the suburban street. It was Arthur Sterling, Jason's estranged father. Arthur was the reason Jason had obsessed over work and control, a cold, absent parent who prioritized the boardroom over his own son. Jason hadn't spoken to him in years. "Jason," Arthur said, his voice flat. "I saw the news of your resignation. I came to tell you what a mistake you've made." Jason's body went rigid. He instinctively stepped in front of the door, shielding the warmth and joy inside. "You're late, Arthur, and I didn't ask for your opinion." "You've thrown away your legacy for a woman and children you didn't even know existed 6 months ago?" Arthur gestured dismissively toward the sound of giggling from within. Jason looked over his shoulder at Emily, who was calmly leading the boys to the kitchen for celebratory milk and cookies. He looked back at the man who had instilled fear and insecurity in him. "My legacy isn't in money, Dad. I resigned because I finally realized what a legacy is," Jason said, his voice quiet but unshakable. "It's about showing up. It's about not repeating your mistakes. And it's about choosing love over power every single day." He took a final defining breath. "I won't let your bitterness contaminate my home. Goodbye, Arthur." Jason gently but firmly closed the door, cutting his father off from the life he had finally built. The confrontation was painful, but it was the final cut. The moment Jason truly severed the anchor to his empty past. Viewer question: how should Jason handle the possibility of his father contacting the family again? Ignore him forever, or allow brief, monitored visits for the boys? Final chapter. The fullness of home. Jason leaned against the closed door, letting the silence settle. Then, The sound of tiny footsteps approached. Liam and Lucas looked up at him their eyes wide. "Who was the grumpy man, Daddy?" Lucas asked. "Just someone who got a little lost," Jason said, shaking his head. "But he's gone now. This is a private party." Emily walked over, wrapping her arms around his waist. "You were incredible," she whispered. Jason held her close, letting the warmth of his family melt the lingering coldness left by his father. He looked around the room, at the mismatched furniture, the flour on the floor, the candy rings on their fingers. This wasn't the perfect, controlled life he had planned. It was infinitely better. He had started as a man who valued perfection and isolation. He had ended up embracing messiness and connection. The ultimate power move wasn't conquering Wall Street. It was conquering his own fear of love. Jason Miller's story is the enduring truth that the most powerful empire any person can build is the one measured by the size of their heart, the strength of their home, and the depth of their commitment. He hadn't just come back for his family. He had finally come home to himself. Thank you for witnessing the journey of Jason, Emily, Liam, and Lucas. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to choose a new legacy. Chapter 9. The Midnight Crisis. Like this video, if you believe the true test of a family is how they handle a late-night emergency. Jason, the man who once lived by a rigid sleep schedule for peak performance, was now accustomed to the soft, unpredictable sounds of a family home. The deep quiet of 3 a.m. was usually a good sign, but on this night, the silence was shattered by a terrified cry. "Daddy, Liam's hot!" Jason shot out of bed, adrenaline instantly spiking. He and Emily rushed into the boys' room. Lucas was huddled at the foot of his bed, pointing frantically. Liam lay pale and sweating, his breathing shallow. Emily, despite her full recovery, instinctively moved with a quiet, efficient fear Jason recognized from her hospital days. She touched Liam's forehead. "He's burning up. Jason, his temperature is high." The old Jason would have called Daniel, his former COO, for instructions, or perhaps thrown money at the problem by calling a private doctor. The new Jason, however, acted. "I'm driving. You grab the medicine bag and the teddy bear," Jason commanded, his voice steady. He scooped up the listless Liam, bundling him into a blanket. The drive to the nearest emergency room was a blur. Jason ran every red light in his mind, but followed every traffic rule, his heart pounding a chaotic rhythm against the stillness of the night. In the waiting room, surrounded by fluorescent lights and the sounds of low coughs, Jason saw Emily's strength in a new way. She was calm, holding Liam close and whispering quiet, familiar stories into his ear. She was the emotional anchor, the one who made the sterile room feel safe. When the nurse called Liam's name, Emily looked at Jason. "Come with us." Inside the curtained-off bay, the doctors confirmed it was a severe fever and a bad respiratory infection. Nothing life-threatening, but serious enough to warrant IV fluids and an overnight stay. Viewer question: what specific, small, non-material thing do you think Jason did in the hospital room that made Emily realize how much he had truly changed? Share your guess in the comments. Chapter 10. The Unpaid Overtime. Emily had to go home with Lucas, who was restless and worried. Jason insisted on staying behind with Liam. "You need rest, Em. You know what the doctor said. We'll take shifts," Jason said firmly. "But Jason, you hate hospitals. You hate waiting. You have a meeting tomorrow," Emily began, her voice strained. Jason reached out and held her hand. "I resigned my CEO post for a reason, remember? My only meeting tomorrow is right here." He then looked at her with a sincerity that brooked no argument. "Go home. This is my shift. I'm reliable now." Emily nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the enormous distance he had traveled from the man she used to know. After they left, Jason sat beside Liam's bed. He didn't check his phone. He didn't worry about his business. He simply sat and watched the rise and fall of his son's chest, the beeping of the monitor, the new, most important rhythm in his life. At one point, Liam woke up, his eyes hazy. He looked at Jason, confused. "Daddy?" "I'm right here, buddy. I'm not going anywhere," Jason whispered, gently stroking his hair. Liam closed his eyes again, but not before reaching out and weakly grasping the cuff of Jason's sweater. That small, instinctive gesture, the silent, trusting request to not be left alone, was worth more than any stock portfolio. Jason spent the rest of the night upright in the chair, occasionally singing the terrible, off-key dinosaur songs the boys loved, realizing he had never felt more essential, more successful, than he did in that uncomfortable chair at 4:30 a.m. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for more stories about true life priorities. Final chapter. The strength of the unit. The next morning, Liam was stable and sleeping peacefully. Emily returned, bringing fresh clothes and coffee. She walked over to Jason, who looked haggard but content. "You didn't sleep at all," she observed, gently touching his cheek. "I had everything I needed," Jason replied, nodding toward Liam. "I know," Emily smiled, "but you're still a former CEO. You need to learn to delegate." Later that afternoon, after Liam was discharged, the family arrived home. The sun was streaming into the living room, illuminating the scattered toys and books. As Jason helped Liam onto the sofa, he looked at Emily, then at Lucas, who was already running to bring his brother his favorite blanket. "You know," Jason said, shaking his head slightly, "before all this, if someone had told me I'd trade a private jet for a trip to the ER, I'd have fired them." Emily laughed. "And now?" Jason gathered all three of them into a big, warm hug. "Now, I understand that the greatest power isn't about what you can acquire, but about what you can protect. And the greatest company I'll ever lead is this one right here." He looked at Emily, his eyes full of certainty and love. They had been tested by a health crisis, not just in Emily's recovery, but in Liam's unexpected fever. And they had passed. Jason hadn't just proven his love with words, he had proven his reliability under pressure. The millionaire who craved control had finally found peace in the chaos of being a present father and a dedicated husband. His old life was a success story. His new life was a testament to redemption and enduring love. Thank you for witnessing the growth of the Miller family. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they are strong enough to handle any crisis. Chapter 12. The Final Boardroom Battle. Like this video if you believe it's possible to use power for good. A few months after Liam's health scare, Jason received a final summons from his former firm. Though he'd resigned, his name and reputation still held immense sway, and the board needed his cooperation to finalize the sale of a key subsidiary, the last piece connecting him to his old life. Jason agreed to one final, in-person meeting in his old office at Emerald Tower. He wore a comfortable, yet sharp, bespoke suit, but the suit no longer felt like armor. It felt like a tool. He walked into the sterile, high-altitude boardroom. His former colleagues, including his rival, Marcus, greeted him with a mix of awe and skepticism. "Jason," Marcus began, his voice laced with the usual corporate slickness. "It's good to see you. Now, this sale is crucial. We need you to sign off on the valuation for the Genesis Data subsidiary. Your signature carries weight." Jason looked at the documents. The valuation was predatory, designed to maximize profit for the shareholders, with no regard for the employees or the community where the subsidiary was based. The old Jason wouldn't have batted an eye. "I won't sign this," Jason stated. Pushing the papers back, the room erupted in confused murmurs. "Jason, this is a $100 million deal. Why?" Marcus demanded. "The Genesis Data campus is in a distressed community. It's the single largest employer there," Jason explained, his voice low and firm. This valuation requires the buyer to immediately gut the facility and move the jobs offshore. I won't be a party to destroying a town for a quick profit." Marcus scoffed. "You've become sentimental, Jason. We're talking about maximizing shareholder return." Jason leaned back, crossing his arms. "I've learned that there's a higher return than profit, Marcus. It's legacy and responsibility." Viewer. Question: what is the most powerful thing Jason can leverage right now? His money, his reputation, or his legal knowledge to force the board to change the deal? Share your strategy. Chapter 13: The Genesis Foundation. Jason didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply pulled out his own set of documents. "I have my own offer," Jason announced. "I will sign this sale, but on one condition. I want the board to immediately establish the Genesis Community Foundation, funded by a percentage of the sale's profits. The sole purpose of this foundation will be to provide long-term healthcare access and educational grants to the families of the employees who will lose their jobs." He looked directly at Marcus. "Furthermore, I will personally contribute the entirety of my own vested shares from this subsidiary to endow the foundation's initial capital. I want to protect those families." The boardroom went dead silent. Jason was using his final corporate act to donate millions of his own dollars and force the board to commit theirs, effectively cleaning up a mess he would have created months ago. Marcus was furious, but cornered. If they refused Jason's demand, the public perception, driven by the now beloved story of the CEO who quit for his family, would destroy their firm. After a tense, silent 5 minutes, the board reluctantly agreed. Jason signed the original sale document. Then he signed the charter for the new foundation. He stood up, looking around the glass-walled room one last time. He realized this act of compassion, this forced act of goodness, felt better than any acquisition he had ever closed. "Gentlemen," Jason said, giving Marcus a nod of finality, "I believe the future of business is built on something stronger than quarterly returns. It's built on community. Good luck." He walked out, leaving his old life behind, completely and irrevocably. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to see how Jason invests his remaining fortune in his new life. Final chapter: The Enduring Legacy. Jason arrived home to a flurry of movement. Liam and Lucas were building a colossal tower out of mismatched blocks in the living room, while Emily was organizing a new physical therapy schedule. Jason watched them, shedding the last vestiges of his corporate armor. "Did you win, Daddy?" Liam asked, looking up. "I won, buddy," Jason smiled. "I won big." He walked over to Emily and wrapped her in a hug. He told her about the foundation, about using his final act to do something right. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. "That's your real legacy, Jason. Not the towers you built, but the people you protected." Jason knew it was true. His story wasn't just about a man who found love. It was about a man who redeemed his power. He learned that being a good father wasn't just about making pancakes. It was about modeling integrity, even when it cost millions. The Miller family's story is the enduring proof that true fulfillment isn't found at the top of the ladder, but on the ground, in the messy, vital business of being human. Jason had finally shed the skin of the isolated billionaire and embraced his role as a husband, a father, and a man whose greatest project was the strength and compassion of his home. Thank you for following Jason Miller's incredible journey of redemption. If this story inspires you, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to redefine success. Chapter 14. The unscheduled vacations like this video if you agree that the best memories are made when things don't go according to plan. Jason had conquered boardrooms, but he had never conquered the simple art of a family vacation. His past vacations were structured itineraries, chartered flights, private villas, and zero surprises. Now, Emily insisted on a classic, slightly chaotic trip. A week at a rented beach house on the Outer Banks, North Carolina. No itinerary, just sand and sun. Jason initially tried to treat it like a business trip. He created a 5-page family fun strategy document detailing optimal beach times, snack rotation schedules, and emergency weather contingency plans. Emily found it, laughed, and used it to write the grocery list. The trip began with immediate chaos. The rented minivan smelled faintly of old fish. Liam got seasick 5 minutes into the bridge crossing, and the beach house, advertised as quaint, was tiny and filled with sand before they even got to the beach. Jason's anxiety flared. His perfectly structured life was crumbling into a heap of damp towels and sticky fingers. "I should have booked the private resort," he muttered, trying to wipe sand from his laptop, which he swore he wasn't going to open. Emily walked over, taking the laptop from his hands. "Stop trying to control the wind, Jason. Just feel it." She led him out onto the deck. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow over the ocean. Liam and Lucas, their clothes mismatched, were shrieking with laughter as they chased crabs on the wet sand. Viewer question: what is the single most important lesson Jason needs to learn about vacationing with children? That it's okay to be messy, that schedules are pointless, or that his presence is enough? Comment below. Chapter 15. Conquering the Current. The true test came the next day. Jason had packed expensive, brand-new beach gear. The boys, however, insisted on using a giant, brightly colored inflatable unicorn named Sparky. Jason, a strong swimmer, found himself struggling to keep Sparky, Liam, and Lucas from being dragged away by the strong current. He was exhausted, salty, and totally out of his depth. Suddenly, a wave hit, flipping the unicorn and sending the boys tumbling. Jason immediately went into rescue mode, efficiently pulling both boys back to safety. Back on the sand, breathless but safe, the boys looked at Jason, not with fear, but with pure adoration. "Daddy, you're so strong! You saved Sparky and us!" Lucas exclaimed. Hugging his wet leg, Jason realized that in his entire life, no business victory had ever given him a fraction of the raw, primal satisfaction of knowing he had protected his family. He didn't care about the messy hair or the burning sun. All that mattered was the weight of his son's small bodies pressed against him. That evening, instead of checking the markets, Jason let the boys bury him completely in the sand, leaving only his head poking out. Emily sat next to him, gently tracing lines on his arm. "You're home, Jason," Emily whispered, looking at him with a love that had been hard-won. "You don't need the tower. You don't need the plan. You just need us." Jason, covered in cooling sand, looked at his laughing family and felt a peace deeper than any private lounge he'd ever relaxed in. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to see more chapters of Jason choosing the messy life. Final chapter: the unforgettable photo. On the last day of the trip, the family stood on the beach for a photo. Lucas was covered head to toe in a faint layer of mud. Liam was holding a half-eaten ice cream cone, and Emily's hair was wild from the sea breeze. Jason, for the first time, wasn't perfectly composed. His shirt was wrinkled, and he had a slight sunburn. But when Emily held the camera up, they didn't smile on command. They were simply looking at each other. Jason, looking at Emily with profound gratitude, and the boys looking at both of them with utter security. This was the photo Jason cherished most. It wasn't the image of a successful CEO. It was the image of a present man. Jason Miller had finally learned that the true return on investment in life isn't measured by a bank statement, but by the richness of his memories. The vacation, messy and unplanned as it was, had succeeded not because they saw any sights, but because they had become, irrevocably, a unit. Thank you for following the Miller family. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder to put down the laptop and go chase the waves. Chapter 17. The first day drop-off, like in this video. If the first day of school is always more stressful for the parents, the summer ended, and the next big milestone arrived. Liam and Lucas's first day at a new, regular preschool. A warm, slightly dilapidated building called the Little Acorns. Jason, the man who once handled billion-dollar IPOs, approached this day with crippling anxiety. He had meticulously vetted the school, reviewing staff backgrounds and nutritional guidelines, but control was still elusive. He dressed the boys himself, making sure their laces were double-knotted and their backpacks perfectly organized. He looked impeccably composed in a navy polo, but inside, his nerves were fraying. At the drop-off line, the scene was pure chaos. Crying children, hurried parents, and the distinct smell of crayons and disinfectant. "Daddy, don't worry," Lucas announced, patting Jason's leg with surprising maturity. "Liam and I will protect the teacher." Jason knelt, hugging them tightly. "I know you will. Just have a good day. And if you need anything, I'll be right outside." Emily nudged him gently. "Jason, they'll be fine. You need to let them go." But Jason couldn't. He walked the boys inside the brightly painted classroom, lingering by the door. He watched as Liam immediately found the dinosaur corner, and Lucas began organizing the colored blocks into perfect size-based towers. They didn't even look back. Jason stood there, feeling redundant, until a kind, tired-looking mom with a paint stain on her shirt walked up to him. This was Sarah, a single mother and a fixture of the school community. "First day jitters?" Sarah asked, smiling warmly. "It's rough. My daughter cried for an hour the first day. Your boys look like they own the place." "I'm Jason," he replied, feeling awkward. I'm not used to not being able to see them." Sarah nodded with knowing empathy. "Yeah, letting go is the hardest part. You spend so long protecting them, and then you have to trust the world won't break them in the 3 hours you're gone." That simple statement, trust the world won't break them, hit Jason with the force of a market crash. His entire life had been about building walls to prevent breakage. Now, his job was to trust. Viewer. Question: what is the most likely reason Jason lingered near the school after Emily left? He was worried about the boys. He missed the boys, or he was unsure what to do with his free time. Comment below. Chapter 18. The Parents' Committee. Jason didn't leave. He went to the school's coffee station, a cheap percolator next to a sign-up sheet. Emily had already left for a physical therapy appointment, leaving Jason completely alone in this new parental landscape. He sat awkwardly, scrolling through his investment thesis, trying to look busy. But the parents who remained, mostly Sarah and a few others, were talking about local politics, fundraising, and who was bringing snacks next week. Sarah walked over. "We're having a coffee hour meeting about the fall fair. We need someone to head up the sponsorship committee, getting local businesses to donate. You look like you know about fundraising." Jason paused. His last fundraising effort raised $50 million for a global tech launch. Raising $5,000 for a bouncy castle seemed absurd, but he also saw the genuine need and the community spirit. He closed his laptop. "I'll do it," he said simply. Sarah beamed. "Great! You just committed to 10 hours of phone calls and a spreadsheet. Welcome to real life, Jason." For the next few weeks, Jason tackled the school fair with the same precision he once applied to a hostile takeover. He created a meticulous spreadsheet, leveraged his contacts, calling them for school fair donations was strangely humbling, and secured major sponsorships from companies that had previously only heard from him when he was demanding they buy his stock. He realized the immense difference. In the corporate world, he demanded value. Here, he created value by connecting people for a common, simple cause. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to see Jason's awkward but sincere transformation into a community organizer. Final chapter. Redefining high stakes. The day of the fall fair arrived. Jason, in jeans and a Little Acorns volunteer t-shirt, found himself running the ring toss booth. He looked happy, genuinely, unreservedly happy. Emily and the boys found him by the booth, covered in sweat and victory tanned from a full day outside. "Daddy! Daddy! We won the goldfish!" Liam screamed, holding a tiny plastic bag. Jason lifted both boys into a hug. "That's incredible! What are you going to name him?" "Rocket Dog," Lucas declared, honoring their favorite cartoon hero. Emily stood back, watching the scene. Jason was completely present. No trace of the stressed CEO. "The fair raised $18,000, Jason," Emily noted, her voice full of pride. "They've never hit half that." Jason smiled, looking at the vibrant, messy, beautiful scene around them. He looked at Emily, his strong, steady partner. "This is what high stakes feels like, Em," he said, squeezing her hand. "Knowing that every hour I spend here, every dollar I help raise, directly impacts the safety and happiness of the people I love. That's a real return." Jason Miller had traded the isolation of the corner office for the warmth of the community. He had replaced the ambition of conquest with the satisfaction of contribution. His legacy wasn't a financial empire, but a goldfish named Rocket Dog, a school that felt safe, and a family built on presence, not profit. Thank you for following the Miller family. Share this video with a friend who needs a reminder that the best networking is always found in the community. Chapter 19. The Dragon's Fear. Like this video, if you believe every hero needs help facing their monsters. Jason's new role on the school's sponsorship committee gave him access, not to global markets, but to the most crucial data point, his children's lives. And the data showed a problem. Liam, the quieter of the twins and the self-proclaimed dragon with an emotional support bear, started showing an unusual distress. He was terrified of the dark, and bedtime became a nightly battle of wits and tears. Emily and Jason had tried everything: nightlights, monster spray, and even singing the entire Little Acorns curriculum. Nothing worked. One night, Jason found Liam curled up, crying softly, clutching Mr. Snuggles. "Daddy, the dark. It has too many possibilities," Liam whispered, echoing the very language Jason used to describe market risks. "I don't know what's out there. I can't see it." Jason suddenly saw the problem through the lens of a CEO dealing with an unforeseen variable. Liam wasn't just afraid. He was dealing with the fear of the unknown, the very thing Jason himself had spent his life controlling. "Okay, buddy," Jason said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "We're going to treat this like a risk assessment project." Liam sniffled. "Well, what's that?" "It means we stop fighting the dark and we start mapping it. We define the risk, so it becomes a certainty." Viewer. Question. If you were Jason, what tool from your CEO toolkit would you use to help Liam conquer the dark? A detailed budget plan? A flowchart? Or a new piece of tech? Comment below. Chapter 20. Mapping the Unknown. Jason went to his home office, now his family's creative space, and returned with his most important non-digital tool, a high-powered laser pointer, originally used for presentations, and a headlamp from a camping trip Emily insisted on. "Tonight we're not sleeping," Jason declared with a conspiratorial whisper. "We're going on an expedition." He fitted the headlamp onto Liam's head. "You are the chief scout and lead investigator. Your mission is to find out exactly what is in your room after the lights go out. We will use the laser pointer to mark every single object." Together, they turned off all the lights. The room went pitch black. Liam's hand instantly clenched Jason's, but the curiosity was stronger than the fear. "Ready, Scout?" "We're ready." Jason used the laser pointer to draw a red dot across the ceiling. This is the ceiling zone. Status? Empty, Liam giggled, shining the beam on the bookshelf. Books, not scary. For the next hour, they meticulously mapped the room. The monster lair under the bed was confirmed to contain only dust bunnies and one lost Lego piece. The shadow threat in the corner was definitively identified as the laundry hamper. The unidentified flying object near the window was a curtain tieback. By the end of the exercise, the unknown was cataloged, defined, and stripped of its power. The dark wasn't a realm of limitless possibilities. It was a small, familiar room, containing only the objects they knew and loved. Final chapter. The certainty of love. When they finished, Liam yawned hugely, but his eyes were bright, not fearful. The dark is just the things, Liam concluded, taking off the headlamp. It's just the stuff we know. Exactly, Jason whispered, tucking him into bed. The unknown is only scary until you shine a light on it. And your job, Scout, is to always be the one who shines the light. As Jason sat with him until he fell asleep, he realized this wasn't just a win for Liam. It was a profound breakthrough for himself. He had spent his career managing the impossible, but he had managed this not with money or power, but with patience, presence, and understanding. He didn't fix the problem. He gave Liam the tools to fix it himself. Later, he found Emily, awake in the living room. How did the expedition go? She smiled. We officially mitigated the risk of the dark, Jason said, kissing her forehead. But seriously, Em, he was terrified, and I almost went straight into fix-it mode. But you didn't, Emily said, holding his hand. You saw his fear, but you trusted his intelligence. You met him where he was, not where you wanted him to be. That's true leadership, Jason. Jason Miller had moved from a CEO who demanded certainty to a father who nurtured confidence. His greatest victory wasn't forcing a corporation to change, but helping his son understand that he already possessed the strength to face the shadows. Thank you for following the Miller family. Share this video with a friend who needs a creative solution to a common problem. Chapter 21. The Anniversary of Renewal. Like this video. If you agree that the greatest love stories are the ones that surprise you the most. 1 year had passed since the impromptu candy ring wedding in their living room. For their first anniversary, Jason decided to forego the grand gestures of his past. No diamond jewelry, no private jet to an island. Instead, he took Emily back to where it all began. The sterile, high-altitude floor of the Emerald Tower. Not to his old office, which was now occupied by a new, stressed-looking CEO, but to the lobby sofa, where Liam and Lucas were first found sleeping, and then to the hospital waiting room, where they waited for Emily to wake up. Emily, dressed beautifully but practically, looked at him, confused. Jason, why are we here? This is where the nightmare started. Jason took her hand, his eyes serious but full of warmth. Exactly. We're here because these 3 places, this sofa, that waiting room, and our messy kitchen, are the foundation of our life. The tower was my old success. These places are our true beginning. Viewer question. What simple, symbolic gift do you think Jason should give Emily at this spot to represent their journey? The original candy ring, a photo of the boys, or a small model of the lobby sofa? Chapter 22. The Measure of a Man. Later that evening, they celebrated quietly at home. The boys were asleep, and Jason and Emily sat by the fireplace, talking about their chaotic, beautiful year. Jason finally gave Emily his gift, a custom-made photo album. Inside, there were no expensive photos. Instead, it contained photos of their life's uncontrolled moments. Liam covered in sand, Lucas with the goldfish, Emily laughing in the kitchen, and a photo of Jason kneeling in the mud at the soccer field. On the last page, there was a handwritten note. When I saw the note asking me to take care of them, I thought I was being given a task. I realize now that you and the boys were giving me a gift, the chance to be a better man. I don't regret walking away from the billions. I only regret the years I wasn't here. Happy anniversary, my love. Thank you for choosing to rebuild with me. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of deep, earned love. Jason, she said, touching his cheek. Your redemption wasn't about leaving the money. It was about choosing presence over perfection. You stopped trying to control the world and started nurturing your home. That's the greatest turnaround story I've ever seen. Subscribe to the channel for more insights into finding happiness outside of the conventional path. Final chapter, The New Compass. Jason looked at the fire, reflecting on his journey. He was no longer the ruthless CEO, yet he was stronger, wealthier in spirit, and more influential than ever before, because his actions were guided by integrity and love. He was still an entrepreneur, running his ethics-focused foundation, but his ultimate success was defined by the simple moments, helping Liam conquer his fear, helping Lucas organize his blocks, and knowing Emily trusted him completely. The millionaire who chased control finally found freedom in vulnerability. He realized that the messy, unpredictable life with a family was not an interruption to his success. It was his success. Jason Miller's story is the enduring truth that redemption is possible, but it must be chosen daily. He didn't just find a family, he found his purpose, proving that the true measure of a man is the size of the heart he chooses to build his home with. Thank you for following the Miller family's journey of transformation. Which part of Jason's redemption story touched you the most? Share your thoughts below.